Well, hello friends, it's time for another video, I guess, from my messy kitchen table. And the Snider videos actually were really popular, so I figured I have enough material to do at least one more. So today we have, see if that will focus for you here. Come on, focus. I don't know if it's going to focus. You can see there. I think you can read that. I can make it out. Of course, I know what it says too. Well, it says Thomas Turner, Fisher Street, Birmingham. So that is a commercial Snider target rifle, and I've put it side by side with the standard Snider-Enfield. This particular one is from 1864, so this is actually a conversion. All the fourth model Enfields, and I think the majority of the third models were converted to Sniders, but the fourth models were mostly not used, so they were still sitting in storage at the Tower of London or somewhere when they decided to switch to breech loaders, so they were all taken in and converted before they fired. It's a bit of a myth about the Sniders that they were all converted from worn out muzzle loaders. The majority of the Sniders that were converted were actually never shot before they were converted. Well, other than testing, of course. But anyway, back in the old days, and into the not so distant past either, actually, target shooting was actively encouraged by the Commonwealth government. Well, it wasn't called the Commonwealth then, but the British Empire. So whether you were in, oh, now it's focusing. So whether you were in Canada or Australia or NZ or even back in England, you were actually encouraged to take up target shooting. I think it was when the scare that Napoleon was going to invade England, they started to encourage a volunteer movement. And of course, target shooting was an essential thing. And when the pattern 1853 Enfield came out, you could buy a commercial version of it. Several makers made them: Barnett, Pritchett, Thomas Turner, Webley, and so on. And into the Snider era as well, the same thing carried on. Of course, if you had the tooling to make a P53 Enfield, then obviously you could make a Snider as well. They're pretty close. And that carried on through the Martini Henry era. There were Thomas Turner marked Martini Henrys, which were, I don't think Thomas Turner actually made the Martini Henry. I think I've read somewhere that they were made in Belgium or something, and then like the action was made in Belgium, and he put his own barrels and things on them. But that carried on through the Lee Metford and Lee Enfield era, and through the SMLE era. If, like, say in the 1920s, you could go to a catalog and buy a BSA Mark III Star SMLE, exactly the same as the standard issue military rifle of the day. And I think in the number 4 era, you could buy accurized number 4s, but I don't think they actually made any specific number 4s just for target shooting, because the majority of the number 4s were made during wartime. And I think companies like Parker Hale and so on would take them and make them into target rifles. But, put that in perspective, that's no different than, say, today picking up a catalog and just ordering yourself a M4 carbine or a C7 rifle or something like that, right? Like, you could, the average citizen was entrusted with the military's current service rifle. You could buy the bayonet for it and the whole works. But I think you could also buy, don't quote me on it, but I think you could also get an Enfield Snider for civilian shooting. I think that's the ones that you see with the reversed, like the nose-to-nose broad arrows on them. I think those were purchased by civilians. And so anyway, this Thomas Turner rifle is one of the, they were one of the better known makers of civilian Sniders. And they're actually quite a superior arm to the standard rifle. So this one here has the checkering on it, really nicely done. And well, there's a couple of things that indicate this is a later rifle. One being that it has the Mark III style of breech block with the so-called positive lock on it. And the fact that it has checkering. The checkering wasn't actually allowed in official target shooting for some time. It was quite a while before they'd relaxed the standard on that, so you could actually use it in target shooting. So this one, having originated in Canada, well, somebody in Canada obviously bought it from, maybe they bought it from England, I don't know. I don't know enough about it to tell you. My guess is probably someone in Quebec or Ontario probably retailed some of these, but if that was the case, I would kind of expect to see a retailer's name on it, and there's nothing like that. All it has is Thomas Turner, Fisher Street, Birmingham. And interestingly enough, it has this weird X carved into the butt. I don't know what the significance of that is. Maybe that's maybe he shot a deer with it, or maybe he won a match or something. But anyway, they're really nice quality rifle, and you can compare it. It's pretty much the same as the military rifle. It's just it's got a superior grade of wood. You can see it has a darker wood. It's a darker walnut than what the military rifle has. The military rifle, it's a good representative example, but it's definitely been used and abused, so it's not really a fair comparison. This one looks like it's had a relatively sheltered life. You can see there's a wear mark where it has been carried some. And this is another point I wanted to make about these. Like this is a Lee 575, what they call their Civil War Menet bullet. These shoot really well out of the Snider. If you, I think I went over that in another video. The trick is to cast them out of a little bit harder metal, which seems counterintuitive, and to use the full service powder charge, and they shoot at least up to the standard of the day. But anyway, so these just rattle into the bore of the military Snider, and they're very tight fit in the Thomas Turner bore. If I push that in, it might be hard to get it out. So, this is what I touched on in another video about, like the current trend is to use a .600 bullet. And, the Snider has a tapered bore too, right? So, like the rifling is deeper at the breech than it is at the muzzle, so it's almost like a squeeze bore effect. So, the idea is that this bullet expands when it fires and goes into the rifling, and then as it passes through the rifling, it gets squeezed, and it's actually a really good system. But you're not going to get a 600 bullet in that Thomas Turner rifle. It just is not going to happen. I honestly don't think it would even chamber. Like the chamber is tight compared to the military Snider too. And I experienced the same thing. I had a Pritchett Snider with a 5 groove barrel at one point, and that was the same situation as well. The chamber was very tight, and the bore was tight, and it shot really well too. Yeah, with this bullet, I didn't need any 600 bullet or these goofy round balls that people are shooting or anything like that. It shot well with a bullet close to the service bullet. What I am getting, there's a fellow that markets a different base plug for these bullets, and it duplicates the Japanese Snider bullet. Japan didn't have the technology. Like the British military bullets were not cast, right? They were swaged, so that they had a squirting machine that squirted out lead rods, and then they went through a swaging process, and then the original Snider bullet had a hollow in the nose, and then that was either filled with a wooden plug or spun. The later ones, the lead was spun over the nose, and the idea of that was people think, oh, it's a dum-dum bullet. Well, no, it wasn't. That was not the intention. The Snider had accuracy issues because the one mark of ammo would shoot great with the 3-band, which has, I believe, a 1 in 72 or 1 in 78 twist, somewhere around there. It's basically about a 6-foot twist anyway. And the short rifle has, I believe, a 1 in 48 twist with 5 grooves. So they would come out with 1 mark of ammo that shot great in the 3-band, but didn't shoot worth beans in the 2-band. And then they'd come out with the next mark of ammo that shot like a house on fire in the 2-band and didn't work worth a darn in the 3-band. So the final model of bullet actually changed, like they hollowed them out so that it changed the center of gravity and the weight distribution, so the bullet would work well out of either twist. But anyway, that's what I'm going to get for this. Like these shoot quite well, but I'm kind of interested to see what the Japanese type Snider bullet will do. But anyhow, this one here, it does vary, like I said, in some small dimensions. Like that lower band is a half an inch further to the rear on the Thomas Turner, and the butt is also about maybe 3/4 of an inch longer or so, which is kind of unusual. Now there was also different lengths of butt in the Snider, like the Enfields, but that was a difference of a full inch. And this has never been sanded, but you can see the butt plate is a little bit proud of the wood on each of these. Unfortunately, that's just a result of the wood shrinking over time. You can see that it's never been sanded down. Roundel is still there, clear as day. But yeah, these are quite a nice gun, and interestingly enough, it has a weird combination of features too. So this is the Mark II Star. Now these have a flat hammer face, okay? So when they upgraded to the 2 Star, the main upgrade on that was a hollow hammer face, and that idea behind that was that would go over the nipple, and if you had a blown case, that would hold the breech block shut. So then later, they came out with the so-called positive lock of the Mark III type. They went to back to the flat-faced hammer. Now this one has a hollow hammer. Weird. And the snap cap is a slightly different pattern than the government pattern. And the interesting thing about this one is that it has a iron barrel, even though it's a Mark III action. So the iron barrels were more popular among target shooters. The steel barrel was all the rage for a very short period, and the target shooters found there were issues with them. The main issue with them was that the rifling tooling wore out quicker, and apparently you were more likely to get a crappy barrel in a steel barrel than you were an iron one. And they claimed that the iron barrels held the heat more, so it caused the fouling to bake on, or the steel barrel held more heat. And the other thing was that they said they had a tendency to chip in use. Like, say, if you nicked it with a cleaning rod or something there, they would take a chip out of the muzzle. And that's probably true, because I did have a Snider with a steel barrel, and it did have a small chip at the muzzle. So I guess there was something to it, but they said that Thomas Turner of Birmingham was well known for having extremely high quality iron barrels. So all in all, it's a pretty interesting piece, and you'll see things like the quality of the brass on this. The brass is absolutely beautiful, and like the Enfield it's all right, but you can tell by the color of the brass and all that the quality of the actual material on the civilian rifle is actually better. And it's a really, really nice rifle. It handles really well. It's really well balanced. They were called back in the day rack rifles, because this was a rack rifle. That's the standard rifle issued to a soldier, and then these private purchase ones were considered an upgrade. So I don't know the history behind it. I think the fellow that owned it may have gone to Wimbledon with it, or maybe he was just a man who wanted to have his own service rifle, but he wanted something a little bit better than average. I guess we'll never know. And there's no way to trace the serial number on these and find out who they were sold to or who owned them or anything like that. But it was obviously really well cared for. It was probably treasured, which it should be. It's just overall a gorgeous rifle. It's a really good example of 1870s British gun making. I really wish I still had the Perchet one to show you. It was a really, really nice piece as well. Unfortunately, I had to sell it several years ago, but that was an interesting rifle. It was a two-band rifle cut down, but it wasn't. How would you say it? It was kind of like the Lee-Enfields that you would buy in the catalogs that were cut down and sporterized by Parker Hale. It was kind of like that for its day. So what it was a military rifle, and you could barely tell where the sword bar used to be. They'd taken that off. And, if I remember right, they also relocated the rear sight so that it was in a better place for carrying. And it had the checkering very much like this, the same type of style, and it was rounded off on the forend, and it had an ebony forend tip attached. And that was a really good shooting rifle, but that was like the bottom of the line sporting rifle that you could buy at the time. That's like what a working man would buy, and the quality of that was just like way better than anything that you could buy today. But the funny thing about it was that the barrel on it was actually painted, and I believe it was original. It was like a hard to describe what it was, like maybe like a black lacquer or something. But you could I took it out of the stock. I thought somebody had done it, like Bubba had done it or something, but Looking closely at it, I think that that's the way it was done at the factory, like more at Pritchett. And everything checked out on it, but it was a fantastic shooter. I really wish I'd been able to keep that one, but I had to sell it to pay the bills. But this Thomas Turner rifle will probably never be sold. I did have a Thomas Turner back in the old days as well, but I never did shoot it. It had, unfortunately, somebody had not taken very good care of it, and I suspect it had an insect nest or something right about where the upper band was all honeycombed, so the barrel was ruined. But other than that, it was almost the same as this one, minus the checkered stock. But yeah, they're a beautiful rifle, as I've said many a time before. If you don't have a Snider, you're missing out. I suggest you buy one, and you should also buy a copy of this book, A Guide to the Queen 60, or Martini Henry and Snider Rifles, and How to Use Them. You can read this book online. It's available on Google Books. Sometimes it's hard to find, but if you dig around, you can find it. But it's kind of nice just to have the paper copy. And this is a really good book. It has a lot of period information that has all these diagrams of how to sight for weather and windage and that type of thing. And obviously, it's made for the Snider and the Martini Henry. This one actually focuses more on the Martini Henry. There was an earlier version online that seems to have disappeared, unfortunately. But it's a really good book. See, it shows all the different shooting positions of the time. That looks really comfortable. And there's an interesting one there. There's yeah. It shows you how to. That's the side position that was in vogue for a while, and you kind of hold the rifle with your feet, and you put the butt on the ground. For years, they didn't allow you to put any part of the rifle in contact with the ground, and then that changed. I like this part of the book. Those who can easily read this paragraph in a clear, bright light at 7 feet from the eye may consider that they have a good sight. So I don't know what scale this book is to, if that applies. Like, the printing is pretty tiny in it, but it's a good book. These old books are packed with interesting information, and if you get into these rifles, you really should have books like this. I'll see if there's anything interesting in here. Tells you to put the bayonet on your rifle when you're practicing your positions, because the extra weight on the end of the barrel will strengthen your muscles, and then when you shoot without it, the rifle feels like it has no weight. And that's really very good advice. The only thing is that they're so damn long with the bayonet on there, you might end up poking a hole through your ceiling. Don't ask me how I know that. But yeah, it's an interesting book. I recommend getting one. Anyhow, that's about it for today. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about these Sniders. I think I have a little bit more to cover on them. Not too much more, but probably enough to make another video or two. And if there's anything any of you want to know about these or anything, just leave a note in the comments, and I can give you some information. I've been playing with these things for, I think, since 1997. I think 97, 98, somewhere around there. I think it was 97 when I got my first one. So I got a fair amount of experience with these things. So any and also with the Martini Henry, I got a Martini Henry I think the year after my first Snider, and I've owned a number of them through the years and shot them extensively as well. And also I had the Trapdoor Springfield, I had the Gra, I had a Dresa needle gun, which I never did shoot because at the time that I bought it, you could buy a needle gun cheap at that time too. They were almost being given away, same as the Chassepot too. You could pick one of those up for $300, 25 years back, and now the information is out there how to make cartridges for them and everything, and so the price has gone up on all of them. You don't even see any of those for sale anymore. I had a Beaumont. What else did I have? I had quite a variety. I had a Verndl for a while, but that one didn't work. It was missing some parts. I had a 71 Mauser. Had a couple of Trapdoor Springfields. A bunch of Remington rolling blocks. Various calibers. So I've had quite a bit of experience loading and shooting and collecting most of these. So, but the Sniders are still my favorite. I keep going back to the Snider. It's just that they're a part of Canadian history, and they're just a really fun rifle to shoot. So they still remain my favorite out of all of them, and I think my second most favorite would be the Trapdoor Springfield, followed by the Rolling Block, and then the Martini Henry, and then everything else behind those. Anyhow, I guess that's it for today, and like I said, if you think of anything you want to know, just leave me a comment and I'll try to answer it for you.